Hey, welcome back, guys. I thought I'd talk about some of my nightmare jobs today. Honestly, I don't have too many crazy stories with the handyman business, but it has been 4 years, so I've got a few. And I'm going to start off with one that you're almost certainly going to see at some point, and that's working in a roach-infested property. So, this one specifically, there have been a few, but there was one that really got me, and I showed up to the property, it was vacant, and they had asked me to do a whole lot of estimates, big old list for tons and tons of estimates. And I walked inside, and they had not warned me about this, but the place was full of roaches. Now, luckily, they were pretty much all dead. Somebody had gone and fumigated already at that point. But when you fumigate, all the roaches come out and they die all over the house. So as I walked through this house, I'm literally crunching roaches under my feet. There's just roaches on every surface you can imagine. The carpet was, you could tell they were so dirty. The carpet was like matted down with sticky stuff. It was just truly a disgusting property. And I was walking through and I was trying to figure out, like, man, am I even willing to work in here? Like, I don't even want to be walking through this place right now. I'd already decided when I get home, I'm going to strip outside, put my clothes in a black garbage bag, and leave them out in the sun just to kill any eggs or roaches that could have gotten onto me, and then throw them in the washing machine or something. But what made it worse was as I'm walking through the house trying to get some measurements, just because I didn't know for sure if I was even going to give an estimate, but I was already there. So I finally, the last room I walk into is just horrible. It was very clear that this was a little girl's room. There was like princess stuff on the walls. I opened up the closet and there's these princess dresses hanging in the closet. And from the size of the dresses, it was clear that probably a 7 or 8 year old little girl lived in this filth. And it just broke my heart, because I have kids, and it was truly horrible. And to tell you the truth, I can't even remember anymore if I gave an estimate or not. I know I didn't work on the property, but I don't remember if I gave an estimate and it got declined or if I just didn't give an estimate. But I think there's a good chance what I likely would have done, that I think I probably did do, is I probably just made my estimate and then doubled it, kind of hoping to not get the job, but also at the same time wanting to make sure that my clients didn't view me as somebody who wasn't unwilling to take care of business for them. And then another very similar job was the one I call the piss cabinet. And this was a vanity. I needed to replace a vanity in a bathroom. Or actually, no, I didn't need to replace the vanity. It turns out I ultimately did at a future job on that property. But the problem was that there was a leaky faucet in the bathroom. So I show up and the whole bathroom, not the rest of the house, but the bathroom smells like piss and sewage, just horribly. And I realized what's going on is they also have had a toilet problem there, and their toilet had kept overflowing, which was also another job that I was on months later. But as their toilet overflowed, it would soak the base of the cabinet and soak up into the base of the cabinet. So, with this leaky sink, this dripping faucet, it was dripping into the cabinet down below, which had previously soaked up all of this sewage essentially, and it had re-wet the entire cabinet so that the smell just permeated. And at the time, my business was relatively new. The client I was working for was a really great client, but he was also a very new client. And it was super important to me, both financially, in terms of I needed money and I needed money now, and I needed as much of it as I could get as fast as I could get it, because I had just had twins and I just a lot of stuff going on in my life. I had to have the money. So I laid down in the bottom of the cabinet to be able to reach up to work on the faucet. And as I'm laying there smelling all of this, I realize the floor of the cabinet that I'm laying in, not just the base touching the floor of the bathroom, but the actual floor of the cabinet itself was also wet, and it was soaking into my shirt. But at this point, I'm like, I'm already here. I'm already halfway into the job. This is already on my shirt. It's not like I can avoid getting it on me. So I'm just going to finish this job as fast as I can. And it was not an easy job. It was not a smooth faucet swap. It was one of the bad ones. And by the time I left there, my back was soaked. And not only was it soaked, it was burning, like literally burning. I assume from the ammonia from the piss, but it was burning and soaked, and I smelled like it. So as soon as I was done, canceled my next job, went out to the van, and just hauled butt home so I could shower and change and then still make it to the job. after the next job. But that one was absolutely horrible. And had I not been in a position where I was just simply desperate, not just for money in the moment to pay bills and grow my life, but also desperate to create a successful business and needing for every single job to go as smooth and as fast as possible. Had I not been in that position, I don't think I would have even done that job. I would have said, hey, if you want me to fix this, we're going to need a whole new vanity because I'm not getting that on me. Now, the next job wasn't so bad on the job. In fact, I didn't even personally work this job, but we had a roof that had supposedly a leak, right? So, one of the guys that I was freshly subcontracting out to, I sent him out there to look at it, and he sent me a bunch of pictures, and he's like, hey, man, this isn't just one leak. There's like 12 spots on this flat roof where it's just tore up and degraded, and water's going into the house. So, he sent the pictures. I approved the work. I said, yeah, go ahead and patch all of them, but do me a favor. If you want to recoat this roof, then give me an estimate for recoating. And if you don't want to recoat this roof, get me some measurements and some better pictures so that I can submit an estimate, because we're going to need to recoat this roof one way or the other. So I did all of his patches, sent me the estimate. I got the job approved, sent it back to him, made everything clear to him, sort of what my expectations were as far as the quality of the job. He got the roof redone. And then after he got the roof redone, I invoiced, and maybe 6 months went by. Could have been even about 8 months, maybe. It was less than a year, though. So a bunch of time goes by. And all of a sudden, I get this message from a property manager about that job. And attached to it is all of these pictures of the entire top of the roof being torn up completely. Just a giant missing hole that they had torn up, where they said everything was rotten. And then a bunch of pictures from inside the house with all the drywall removed from the walls, mold everywhere. I mean, this thing was horrible. So that scared the crap out of me because we recoated this roof, right? So I went and I looked at all of my old pictures, all the photos that I had him send me. And luckily, I made sure that he sent me tons and tons of after photos. So it really covered all of the square footage of the top of the roof. I had also made sure that he put 2 coats on. I made sure that he pressure washed everything. So I was confident that we had done a good job. And the saving grace of this job was because clearly they wanted me to be responsible for these damages. And the saving grace for this entire job was 2 things. One, I had had all of those pictures throughout the process. This was a new guy. So just to make sure he was doing his job right, I had him send me pictures throughout the process, not just of the finished product, but of the pressure washing, of the clean roof, of the old damage, etc., as well as pictures from inside and multiple parts of the house where there had already been clearly a lot of leaking. And we did give a drywall estimate for the inside of the house, and they didn't accept that estimate. So we never worked inside the house. But, anyways, the saving grace was that I had all these pictures documenting the entire process throughout. I had pictures of the specific spot that they had torn up, and it was very clear from the pictures, they were good, high quality pictures, that this was a sealed roof, that this roof was good to go. But my real saving grace was that I had written out a lot of disclaimers when we were estimating for the roof, as well as after the roof got done. And I made sure they were all in writing so that I could prove later, because in the disclaimers, I let them know that half of this roof was rotten and that I didn't think that the best route to take was going to be to actually just recoat the roof. I told them they needed to send a roofing company out there and get a lot of this roof just completely ripped out and taken care of. I had also included in my disclaimers that it was very clear that these leaks were old leaks, that they had been going on for a while, and that I suspected there was probably already a lot of interior damage inside the roof, along with the fact that some of it was just rotten on the surface as well. But I let them know that there was plenty of damage and that there was probably plenty of damage inside in the walls and stuff too. So, long story short, luckily, my warranty with this company that they had always known and that I had in writing was I let them know I don't have a time frame on my warranties. It's not a 6 month, it's not a 1 year. My warranty is if it can be shown that the defect is a result of work that I did. If it's a result of me doing something wrong or my company doing something wrong, if that can be shown, then I back up my work in perpetuity. But if that can't be shown, then the best I can do is go out there and look at it. And if I feel responsible, then I'll offer to fix it for free. But I do require that it can be shown that it has something to do with my work. Because the problem is, this roof, let's say it was 8 months ago. In that intervening 8 months, I don't know how many storms passed through, how many tree branches might have fallen on the roof because there was a tree overhanging it and it had a lot of branches on it when we first went to look at it. Or if an AC guy might have gone up there and dragged his toolbox across it or something. So essentially, they had already ripped up the giant area. They didn't have any before pictures to show specifically any of my patches having failed or my coding not being good coding. And I had all of my old pictures. So, long story short, I believe I gave them $500. I think I just sort of bought them off. I basically said, "Hey, I can just give the homeowners $500 just to make them happy and to help with these new repairs, but I'm not responsible for the old repairs, especially since you ripped everything out before I even had a chance to look at it and before you even took any pictures of it." And I had all these disclaimers in my old estimate that I didn't think recoding was going to permanently fix the issue and that I suggested before the next monsoon season arrives, which it had arrived at that point, that they send a roofing company out there to actually do some major structural repairs to the roof. So I had made it clear in my estimate that this was a temp fix, that this was hopefully going to get them through maybe another year, but not with any guarantees. So make sure your wording is spot on because that was a nightmare. I lost sleep over that for days before the homeowners finally agreed to go ahead and just take the $500, call it a settlement if you want, but they agreed to just go ahead and take the $500. And I don't know who ended up paying for the repairs. I assume they did, but it was likely far more than 10 grand in repairs, which is another good reason to make sure you have really good insurance and not just liability insurance, but professional liability. That is a different type of insurance, and that's what would have covered me in that situation. Oh, and the next one I'm going to call my meth head story is multiple meth heads. I went to this property, and I swear to God, as soon as I get inside, when you know meth, when you've known enough people on meth, you just know meth when you see it. You can see it in people's eyes and on their face. And there were three older gentlemen living here and one older woman, but she didn't appear to be on any drugs. But the three older gentlemen, 100% were on meth while I was there. Now, luckily, at that time, even today, still sometimes, it always depends on what neighborhood I'm going to. But at that time, there was just a lot of bad neighborhoods I was going to. I think I was being used to get a lot of properties fixed that were in these bad neighborhoods that just hadn't been fixed yet because I was solid and on the ball and my pricing was good. But anyways, I had been carrying, a weapon with me. So luckily I had that. It was under my shirt so nobody could see it. So they didn't know that I had it. But I was very grateful I had my weapon. So I got the job done. But I'm telling you, the entire time, these guys were just messing with the weirdest stuff, telling me the weirdest ideas, asking me super weird questions, scratching their skin all over, blinking a lot, and just, bug eyed as can be. That was not a fun job. And I don't usually let property managers know every tiny little thing that I see going on at their properties. But I absolutely did let them know this time. I was like, hey, the three guys that are living here are 100% on meth. Not here and there. They didn't get clean a month ago and now they just still have like a holdover weirdness to them. They're on meth consistently, like right now. And then finally, this was my craziest one. And I mean, absolutely crazy. This was a very weird time. It was summertime. And I mean, the heat of summer. I was not in a good place with my business because I had not tried, I had fired my son because, well, for a lot of reasons. I don't have to go into the reasons, but he just wasn't taking things seriously and treating it like a legit business. So I had just recently fired my son. Now I had to take on his work, and the job I had taken on was, in fact, the very same job that was the final straw for me having fired him. And it was a mailbox job. So I have to go to Ace Hardware, go and look at the mailbox to see what's going on. I need to go to Ace Hardware. It's the closest to me. I run to Ace Hardware, and on the way back, my GPS messes up. I miss a turn, then get rerouted through a construction zone. And then finally, I'm driving by the Circle K, and I see this guy And this is also, by the way, this is the meth, one of the many meth parts of town here. And I see in the Circle K drive, like the from the road up into the parking lot, the little paved drive that where you turn off from the road into the parking lot, on that slanted area is a guy holding his hand over another guy's neck who's on the ground. And I see this pool of blood that must be like 4 feet in diameter, just spewing out, just along the or not this, yeah, along the cement. Giant pool of blood. The guy's holding a cloth over the guy's neck, so I can tell he's not trying to kill him, he's trying to save him. But he looks scared to death, just absolutely scared to death. And I don't mean the guy who was dying, I mean the guy who was holding the pressure on his neck. Just looks scared to death. Now, I had previously been in both the Army and the Air Force, so I had a lot of first aid buddy training, stuff like that. And it just occurred to me, it was very clear in the moment, this guy probably doesn't know what he's doing. He looks really scared. I'm not really the best person to be doing this, but I'm probably a better option than him. So I pulled over real quick, ran across the road, and asked the guy if he wanted me to take over. And he said, yeah, immediately jumped away. I took over, and I'm holding the pressure on this guy's neck. And I mean, the blood is still, I don't even know what's under the rag. I can't see it, and I'm not going to pull the rag off, but I'm holding the pressure on, and the blood is still just flowing. I don't know how he had so much blood. And he's just trying to breathe. He's just like so I'm sitting there talking to him, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, call 911, call 911, and everybody's like, we already called them, they're on the way. So I'm telling the guy, I'm like, just keep breathing, man, just keep breathing. 911's on their way. I promise you're going to be okay. It's not that bad. I can tell, and I was clearly lying, but I wanted him to feel comforted. So, and I don't even know if he can hear me because he looks very dead in the eyes, but he is still breathing, and he is still has his eyes open, and they're not rolled back or anything. So I'm trying to comfort the guy. I'm talking really loudly to him. I don't know why. I felt like I needed to, just to make sure he could hear me. I'm watching the blood run out. My hand is just soaked in his blood at this point. And then finally, the cops pull in, and as the cops are pulling in, the guy's eyes finally roll back in his head, and he breathes a couple more times, but it felt like forever, but I don't know, 10 or 15 seconds between gasping for more breaths. And then to make the situation worse, is I can tell he's dying. His eyes rolled back. He's almost not breathing at all. His body kind of went really limp. He was no longer like fighting or anything. The cop comes up, and the cop's just got his notepad, and he's just like looking around. He's looking down at me, and I'm sitting here looking up at him like, why am I still doing this if you're here? Like, is this not clearly your job? And apparently, no, it's not their job, which blows my mind. So I'm just sitting there doing my thing, trying to keep the guy from dying. I'm pretty sure he's dead already. And the cops just casually asking me these questions. So eventually, a few seconds later, paramedic or whoever gets there, and they take over because they're trying to ask me questions. I'm like, I don't know anything, man. I just pulled over to help. I don't know anything. So they took over, took the cloth off his neck, and I mean, it is sliced like a good 5-inch slice, all like just about the whole width of his neck. The entire front is just sliced open completely. There's not even blood coming out anymore. The guy's not moving anymore. And then the cop tells me I need to stick around. He's like, I need you to go stand over there and wait so I can take a statement from you. And at first I was like, okay, but I stepped back a couple feet, and then I thought about it. I was like, I got money to make, and I got a business to run. So I went back to the cop, and I was like, hey, I'm going to have to leave. I'm going to have to get to work. Do you want my number? And he's like, no, you're going to stay, and you're going to go over there, and you're going to wait so we can get a statement. And at this point, I'm just angry because this is the same cop who was just casually asking questions and taking notes without any sense of urgency. So I just finally told him, I was like, look, I'm not going to stay. I'm going to work. So do you want my number or not? And he took my number down. I went on to work, got back to the job with a mailbox. My hands are covered in blood. And I'm knocking on the door to see if the lady can let me inside so I can wash my hands. And she won't answer the door. She didn't have like a Ring doorbell or anything. It's not like she saw blood all over my hands and was scared. She just didn't feel like answering the door because it was an outside job and I didn't need to go inside. So then I had to go around to the backyard, find the spigot for the hose, and just rinse with no soap, just rinse the blood off my hands so I can get my job done so that I can make money and pay my bills for my family. But that was the absolute worst, craziest job. This dude, it turns out, in hindsight, I went and found articles and looked it up and got the news story on it. He got his neck cut by some chick as he was coming out of Circle K. Who knows why? Looks like he was a longtime criminal, which made me feel a little bit better about him dying because I didn't know who this was. But regardless of who it was, this was somebody's little boy at some point. So it still wasn't easy, no matter how you put it. But yeah, it turns out he died under my hands. So that was probably my biggest nightmare job. And of course, it wasn't the job that was the nightmare, but it occurred in the course of doing a job. And those are my nightmare jobs. So I guess all I'm going to say is, be prepared, guys. Be prepared to see situations that you didn't want to see. Be prepared to see children living in conditions that maybe aren't worthy of calling CPS. Now, this roach infested one was. Had I shown up and that was an occupied property with parents and the little girl living there, I would have called CPS. And I'm not a big fan of calling CPS over just anything, but the quantity of roaches and the stickiness of the floor and the mess and the dog piss or cat piss or whatever animal it was, this was a nightmare environment for a child to be in. So you're probably going to see some situations where, whether they're worthy of calling the authorities or not, you're going to see situations where you don't like the way that the kids are having to live. You may or may not be in a lot of bad neighborhoods. You may or may not be around a lot of drugs. There's just a lot of things that are going to happen. So, and a lot of your clients are not going to be the cleanest, and you're going to have to figure out how to sort of really think on the fly and be adaptable. And just know it's good to get yourself to the point where you don't have to necessarily do those jobs. Today, if I walked in on half of these jobs, I'd have just walked right back out and called them and said, sorry, man, either I ain't doing this or I'm charging double my rates because this is not normal. This is not healthy. This is not okay. I think y'all need to get somebody over here or you need to get these guys evicted. But you're going to come into contact with a lot of that. So be prepared for that. But those are my top 5 worst nightmare handyman jobs. If you guys want to share some of yours in the comments, that'd be great too. Other than that, I love you guys. I hope you're out there killing it, and I'll see you on the next one.